Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jaden Irwin, and today I actually wanted to go through a back to the basics, crash course of Astro. I know that I've done a few videos on Astro already. I've done a couple of starters on it too, using Sanity, not using Sanity, and just using local markdown files. And really, I just wanted to get back to the basics because I think I'm getting a few questions here and there on those starters that are kind of the basics of Astro and what makes it unique. Also the really nice features that it has that I feel more people should maybe know about. So really, to get started, if you just go to astro.build is the website for them, and then there's documentation up here. If you click on documentation, I would highly recommend reading through all of their docs or most of the things that you feel would be necessary for the site that you're building. But really, to start, if you haven't watched this video on the astro.build site, I would highly recommend it. This 100 seconds of Astro from the Fireship YouTube channel. Really great content from him. If you go to documentation though, you'll see there's a getting started. And when I say that I want to do a crash course, I really do want to pretty much start from nothing and explain how Astro works in terms of its structure, and the way that its components work, and then how its layouts also work. We could probably go through in another video maybe the more in-depth topics like routing, and how to set up tokenized pages. So pages will generate based on authors or generate based on a list of content like markdown files. But really, I just want to go through the basics of how does Astro work as a framework, and how do I get started with it. So let's go ahead and hop in. I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal here. And really, to start, all you're going to need as a prerequisite is npm. I'll walk through the whole process of creating a file, so if you want to follow along with me, definitely go ahead and do that. Really, you're just going to go into your terminal. We're going to do make directory, and you can do this wherever you want to on your computer. So mkdir for make directory, and let's call that Astro 101. And we should see an Astro 101 folder pop up in the directory that I'm in. And let's just go ahead and cd into that. Perfect. And then we're going to do npm init. Oh, sorry, npm init Astro. Getting a little ahead of myself. And it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to install this create Astro script or package? And it will create an Astro project for us. So the templates it's going to list are some really helpful templates. I don't want to ignore them. Definitely take a look at them. There's the blog, there's portfolio. There's a few templates built into this, even a documentation site, which is really cool. But we're just going to go with the minimal one because I really want to start from pretty much scratch on an Astro file. So we're going to go with minimal, and it's telling us right there our next steps is to npm install, or you can use pnpm, yarn, whatever you're comfortable with. Let's just npm install the packages for that. Should take just a second. Not too many packages in this minimal starter. And then from there, we're going to write npm start in our terminal, and that should start our Astro project. And let's just make sure it's running. So we'll go to localhost 3000. Just going to go ahead and click on that. And localhost 3000 is running locally, and we have our Astro project. So as you can tell, there's not a whole lot on there, and that's okay. That we did pick the minimal one for a reason, right? And really the way I wanted to go through this is working backwards. So what this does in its minimal starter, it gives us under source pages and index.astro, it gives us our HTML file, right? And this is that page that we're looking at over inside Chrome. So welcome to Astro, and that's a link to the astro.build site. And there you go right there, welcome to Astro, there's our link. And you can see that this just isn't an HTML file. What's really cool about Astro, and what I think I like the most about it, is that it is largely HTML that you're writing most of the time. Not that I have any beef with JSX or other flavors of syntaxes that, with virtual DOMs and all of that, but I do personally like writing just straight up HTML. And that's, I think, probably my favorite thing about Astro is it lets me do that. It lets me write basic vanilla HTML with the templating framework of Astro. So it's Astro's flavor of HTML, if that makes sense, which is like JSX, but JSX is a little different because you have to use like class names. You can't just use class equals. So there's a lot more differences when you start to get into other languages, and Astro is largely an HTML file. And we'll get more into how these fences work up top, but I really just want to focus on this right now. So you see we have our HTML structure, we have our head, just like you would with a normal HTML file, and then you've got your body, and then our H1, and there you go. It's rendering that page live on, let's go back, localhost 3000. So to work backwards, what we're going to do is actually break this down into a layout first. And if you look at their docs, they actually have a section on layouts. If you want to read more about that, definitely take a look at it. It explains how they work and everything, but what I'm going to do is just copy all of this. And we're going to go into our source directory, and let's create a new folder called layouts. We're going to call this base layout.astro. It is an Astro file. And we're going to paste what we have for the index.astro. And the reason why we're going to create a layout is, imagine if I went and created 4 other pages, a contact page, an about page, maybe the start of a blog page. You don't want to have to copy all of this HTML boilerplate to each of those pages, right? So that's where layouts come in, and it's not really a new concept at all, but Astro makes it really easy to set up these layouts around HTML, which is cool. So we'll go to base layout.astro, and we're going to leave most of this, the HTML, the head tag, but inside this body, let's go ahead and remove that. I'm going to cut it, and we're going to put in a slot. If you want to learn more about slot elements, definitely look that up. But basically the way a slot works is it is slotting. It's putting in a spot where we can have exterior code for this template get dropped in exactly where we tell it to, right? So whatever I put in by default, since this is the only slot, it's going to drop into the body tag. And we're going to actually delete all of this. And at the top, it's telling us component imports and setup JavaScript go here, right? So we're actually going to import that base layout. So import base layout from layouts base layout.astro, and that's all we need. And then beneath these fences, these are called fences, this dash 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 top and bottom. That's what's, if you're familiar with Markdown, Astro is also similar to Markdown files, the way that it uses these fences, but it's really powerful what you can do inside of those. And we're going to do that base layout component, or I guess it is a component. A layout is, in a way, it's a specific component. So base layout, and then let's just go ahead and paste that right there. So if all goes well, our page should look exactly the same. Perfect, that's good. Let's refresh. Now let's make sure it's working. Let's do a p tag. Hey, I'm using a layout. There you go. Hey, I'm using a layout, and that's loading just fine. And we have our base layout. It's slotted in. Let's inspect the page too. It slotted it in exactly inside that body tag, which is exactly what we want. So that's a type of component. That's a layout component. And then let's think about another type of component, like a head tag component, right? So you'll see here our head tag. It has our basic meta tag, our link to the favicon, which we'll go through how to change that if you want. And then the viewport tag. These are basic things that I don't really want to be copying between layouts too. So we could put this into a BaseHead component. If we go to our source, let's create another directory called components. Perfect. And then inside of that, let's call this BaseHead.astro. And then we're actually going to copy not the style tag, because I think the style tag should stay in there for now on the base layout, but we're going to take this BaseHead content and we're going to drop that into the BaseHead. And then what's cool about VS Code is there already is an Astro extension. If you just go to your extensions, you can search for it. And the Astro extension, I should have mentioned that earlier. The Astro extension is going to be really helpful because you'll get syntax highlighting inside of VS Code. Maybe that'll be a separate video is how to set up everything for Astro, but you know, pretty straightforward. I think that's the main thing, is getting that extension installed. That way it suggests the fences like you saw there, and we have the syntax highlighting inside these .astro files. So let's go ahead and paste everything there, and we'll remove these tabs. This is our BaseHead.astro, right? So base layout, we're going to lose. Yep, we already lost it from the head, right? So we want to get that back. And the way to do that would be do another component import. So we'll do import BaseHead from, we'll go up to the components directory, BaseHead.astro. Import that BaseHead. Now we're going to use it. And you'll notice that I also included the title, and that was on purpose. So these components, they don't just work in the sense that I can take this code and chunk it out into another file. They also can pass properties, or props would be the short term for that, similar to other frameworks that you're used to. And what we're going to do is actually swap out this title. So let's go ahead and cut that. And those fences are super important, because at the fences we can do const, and then we're going to do our curly brackets. Title is going to be the property that we want to pass in, equals astro.props. And now what we want is actually this BaseHead to take in whatever title we pass through. So again, we're going to go back and we're going to create another page, but I want that page to have a different title, but largely use the same code that we have on the other pages, right? So BaseHead, and then we're going to do our title right here, passing in the title prop to our title tag. Perfect. So now we have our title property that's going to be passed in from the layout being passed into the BaseHead. So you can see how these props sort of get passed down and cascaded down to where exactly we want it to be. So title right there, and we're going to do our base layout. That's where the BaseHead is being used, and we're going to do title equals. Well, we want the pages to manage the titles, not the layout, right? So what we're going to do is pass that prop again. There's a couple of ways you could do this, but this is one of the cleaner ways. We'll do const title from, oh, not from, equals astro.props. And then BaseHead title equals title. And then the way this works here inside the base layout is we pass the title into the base layout, and then that gets passed into the BaseHead. All right. So we're going to do title equals, and we could pass it directly if we want. Let's test it. Testing title. We'll just save that. And there you go. It's so fast with this new setup that Astro has updated to recently. But testing title is right there as our head tag title. There you go. So testing title, and that's getting passed through. Well, there's another way you could do this. Probably the recommended way, which to be go in your fences again. We do const title equals, and we would call that testing title from fences. And then this would actually be title. So const title, base layout title equals title, whatever this title is for the local file, and then testing title from fences. There you go. Testing title from fences gets passed through. So just in those 3 files, we've pretty much learned how Astro handles properties and then how you can create a component. And it's not just for strings. You can pass in Boolean values, and maybe that's a couple steps ahead of where you're at if you're watching this video, but there's a lot of flexibility with these components that give us a lot of power around HTML that I feel like we haven't really had in a clean way quite yet. 11D is a great framework. I've used it a couple of times on some other projects, and if you prefer 11D or you're coming from 11D, don't get me wrong, it's great. I just feel like Astro has a little bit more of a modern way of handling the templating, and a little bit more of an opinion about how the templating should work on their components and layouts and pages and everything, which I kind of appreciate myself. I like having a little bit of a recommendation on how something should be done. And if you're using 11D, keep using it. If you want to try out Astro, go for it. It's really an awesome framework, and what I love the most about it is that at the end of the day, the site that gets built from Astro is just raw HTML on page. And if you need the JavaScript functionality on some components, what they call them as islands, right? It's not a new concept, that's just what they have on their homepage. But I can still put in JavaScript components if I want to. I just feel like so many sites that we build now, they have a lot more JavaScript than they need, and Astro helps with that. So really that's all I have right now. If this video goes well and there's some comments on it of things that you want to see, maybe you want me to go more in depth about how to use other types of components with Astro, we can make that a second part of it. But really I just wanted to go back to the basics of like, how do I create a component in Astro? How do I do layouts? I guess the last thing that I'll cover is styles. This is one of the biggest strengths Astro has, I think, over other ways of doing things, is I can put a style tag pretty much anywhere, and Astro is going to handle it normally the way that I would want to. Sometimes I have to tell it what to do, but like in this pages, index.astro, we'll go to, let's remove this style tag. Normally your base layout's not going to have a lot of styles on it. And let's change that H1. So just put in, all I did is put in a style tag, right? Let's do H1 color blue. And there you go. It changed that H1 color to blue. And that's really it. I mean, the style tag, what's cool about Astro is because of all the things happening under the hood, it's smart enough to understand Sass too. So if we do an H1, let's do some nesting. So we'll do a div, drop in that div and that H1. So now we could do div, wrap that, and put in this H1, color blue. We'll do another H1. Shouldn't do 2 H1s on page. This is just for example. And testing another heading. So there you go, it has the nesting already. So I did language equals SCSS, flavor of Sass, and then we have a div, and it's targeting a div with an H1 to be a color blue, and then the other H1 that's not in the div goes back to that default black color. So that's how you would do a style tag. You can put these style tags inside of a component. We don't really need to style the base head. There's no styling necessary for that, but these style tags are awesome. So you can put in a style tag inside of a component, and you can actually put scoped on that. I believe Astro actually scopes by default inside of a component, which is awesome. But if you put scoped on there, then it will target just those styles to apply on that component, which is awesome. And then we have our styles. I guess one other thing we could do is we could create another page. So let's copy our index.astro. let's call this contact.astro. So this would be a contact page. And let's delete this. And let's change this h1 to contact. Actually, let's do this. Let's have it match the title of the page. So h1 title equals contact us. Const title equals contact us. Title being passed through. And let's also say, hey, I'm on the contact page. Perfect. So we have our home page, and let's do /. Let's do a link. Let's add an anchor tag real quick. /contact. And that's the other cool thing. It's just a link, which I love. I don't have to do anything special about routing or anything. It's just using the browser's framework, quote unquote, and just a link with an href will take us to the contact page. And then we have our contact us in the title, contact us up here, and there you go, you have a new page and with its own styles. So we could delete the styles from that contact page, and it's back to its default styles. So that's really it. I know that I've maybe said that prematurely, but that's really it here. So we have the concepts of creating layouts, creating components, creating pages, all inside of Astro. If you want to build the site, we'll go ahead and kill our terminal with Control-C, npm run build, and it's very fast. You'll see we have our dist folder, and it builds out all of our files for our site. Public, I didn't really touch on that one quite yet, but public is where files would exist that don't need to be touched by Astro. So a good example is like the robots.txt, right? So that just needs to get transferred over to the dist file at the base directory in order to work, right? And so you would put that in the public directory. Favicons, you could even put images in there too if you have some images that don't need to get touched by Astro. I know Astro is working on an image function or an image component that will do image resizing and image optimization for you. Looking forward to that. But right now, on most sites, you're probably fine to just put your already optimized images inside that public directory and link them just like you normally would in HTML on that index or contact page or wherever, just as an image tag. So that's really it. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I know this is kind of truly a crash course, getting started from absolutely nothing with Astro and learning how it works. So yeah, let me know what you want to see in the next one. If you want to see another, 102 type video, I'm happy to do that. Just wanted to share a little bit of knowledge of the basics of Astro and why I think it's a really great framework. So we'll talk to you guys in the next one, and we'll see you. Happy New Year too. Peace.